Sorry, Sam. And we're back. I'm your host, BKP. We're at Blue Jeans Pizza in Blue Ridge, Georgia. We come to you every Friday morning here. Just a little programming note. Next Friday morning, we will be doing a post-legislative session interview with House Speaker David Ralston. He will be here with us at Blue Jeans next week talking about the post-legislative session.
What time is he going to be on?
I think about 9:15.
Oh, in the midst of your
Yes.
all-star panel.
Exactly. So, Dr. Whaley, welcome this morning. A lot has happened since last night or yesterday afternoon. And I know you said something about you wanted to make some comments concerning last night and the missile strike in Syria.
Your first guest this morning is Commander William H. Whaley, U.S. Navy Reserve, retired, okay? And I'm wearing my jacket this morning because frequently as we've sat here over the last, 10 months or so, I've encouraged these young people graduating from school here who don't have the resources to go to college to consider a military, a period of military service. I was reading in the local newspaper a week or two ago about one of the young ladies up here who had just graduated from naval boot camp. Yesterday, those missiles were fired. You think about all those generals you see on television, all those colonels you see on Fox as consultants. These missiles were prepared, fired, plotted. The course was plotted all by enlisted people between the ages of about 19 and 22. Think about that just a minute. $1 million a piece, those missiles, entrusted to 19-year-old to 22-year-old, well-trained high school graduates from Midland, Texas, and Blue Ridge, Georgia, and somewhere. And yes, the decision was made at the top by Donald Trump, transmitted to some admiral with 2 stars, transmitted to that destroyer to a guy with my rank who was the captain, transmitted down to a chief petty officer, probably 16, 17-year enlisted, but the work was done by young people. I mean, they learned a trade, and they carried out a great act yesterday, but I just want to give credit to the fact that the actual preparing, firing, and doing all that stuff was done by young people that graduated from high school.
Well, I appreciate you bringing that up because we want to always honor and respect our men and women in military, and they are prepared.
Yeah, great way to learn a trade.
They are prepared, and I don't know. I for one am very comfortable with Mattis as the Secretary of Defense, and I'm for sure that he gave the president the best plan. Was I kindly correct in laying out?
Absolutely. The other thing I wanted to say was that as you listen this morning, you're going to hear several talking heads talking about those cruise Tomahawks, that they are so accurate. I heard it as I came in on Fox, that we could put it in the southwest corner window of the 10th floor of a building. And then somebody in disbelief said, well, how do we do that? He said, well, we have all this new GPS we've spent millions on, but that last little piece of accuracy requires that we have a boot on the ground, a special operator with a laser. And he's going to point that laser at the window he wants it to go in, and then that thing's going to fly down that laser beam and go right in that window. So one of the other things that we have to say about this attack was, we had special operators within a few miles of that ground that were helping them target exactly what they wanted to target. So this was such a sophisticated operation. You know, you think it looks like they just shot a bunch of 53 missiles up in the air and into a place as big as the Ingalls parking lot and let them just hit where they were going to hit. That wasn't what happened. They knew where every one of those things was going to hit, and it hit where they wanted it to go.
Let me ask you one more question before we get on to our question of the week. And we're talking about arthritis this week, folks. And throughout the week, if you ever want to get a question to Dr. Whaley, you can send that to me at chief@fetchernews.com, chief@fetchernews.com. And we're back. We apologize for that inconvenience there. But we're back here with Dr. Whaley. Dr. Whaley, when we were talking before our stream went down, we had to come back up. Tell me this, and when a decision like this is made, because I asked you if the protocols, were correct from what the Commander-in-Chief did with the Commander-in-Chief did with the Secretary of Defense. One more question before we move on to arthritis. When they're launching these missiles, okay, and they're doing this, is it not, because there'll be some talk in the media, and there's already talk about, on this base, the Russians had some equipment, okay?
Yep.
And that we notified Russia. That's not uncommon, is it?
No, of course not. Not in the least. Now, you remember that Trump did not call Putin. We didn't call their Secretary of Defense. Some of our special operators on the ground or our CIA on the ground could have notified and warned the guys locally right there at the time. You know, move your VW out of this area, take it back to your house or something. From my friend who is a longtime CIA, 35 years in the CIA, was warned individually several times by KGB counterparts of things that might happen. It's sort of a gentleman's agreement. World War I, they stopped and sang Silent Night, the Germans and the Russians, and the Confederates and the Yankees traded coffee and stuff across the lines. I mean, I think that's the kind of notification we probably made to the Russians.
So
not a big,
right.
not a red telephone.
So anybody in the media that is maybe trying to portray that Donald Trump let his friend know, that didn't happen.
That didn't happen.
We have military protocols with other countries.
Yes, and I think it's largely a gentleman's agreement type thing, really.
That we notify certain people.
We don't want to, we didn't want to kill any Russians.
And we didn't want to take out their planes.
Right. And if a guy was sitting down there and he got in his VW, whatever it was going to go to the officers club and drive across the runway, right when those things were coming, somebody would have told him to go another way.
And this happened to be the base that they took off from to make the chemical attack. So,
correct. I don't think that was a real big strategic base at all. It just happens to be the guilty party.
Okay. Now, moving along.
Are we going to talk about doctor stuff now?
Yeah, let's talk about that. Well, right. It's not every day that on Thursday we have something like Syria, and you yourself, I consider you as, well, I don't want to call you one of the talking heads, but I watch these other networks and they got all their military talking heads, and I have as much respect for your opinion of what took place, so I've been waiting to hear from you.
Okay.
I'm out walking, my legs hurt. When I take walks, is it just a sign of getting older, my legs aching when I...
Well, that's a great question, because it opens up so many different things. First of all, I'm going to give you a scenario. I walk about 100 feet and my right calf hurts. If I stop, it gets better in about 3 minutes. That is a sign of a hard artery to that leg, and the blood flow going to that leg not being equal to the blood flow on the opposite leg, and they call that intermittent claudication. It's a warning sign of atherosclerosis. Well, if you've got it in the leg, you might have it in the heart, you might have it in the neck. And if you have signs or symptoms of claudication, I walk, I get a cramp in my calves. If I stop, it goes away and I can start up again, and then it comes back. Then you need to go to the doctor right away, and you have got a vascular problem, not an arthritis problem. Second, we talk about springtime's coming, everybody's gained 20 pounds and they want to lose a little bit of weight. There's our alarm clock.
Yeah, that's our train.
Blue Ridge, there's our train.
Lets us know we're in Blue Ridge.
Yeah, it'll be great when we're back at Sycamore. Okay, now the second one is, people this time of year want to get in shape. I have repeatedly warned about the pushing of what I call frequency, intensity, and duration. Exercise frequency days a week, intensity, pace, or speed and duration, time or distance. And so if you go out immediately and start walking 45 minutes, 5 days a week, because Dr. Whaley says you're supposed to walk an hour a day, then you're going to have a lot of pain in your legs from overuse, meaning that you've gone out there and you can do that when you're 16 or 18, but you can't do that when you're 35 to 50 or 60 or 70. That is then muscular overuse, and that is a sign that you did it wrong. Now, lastly, we're going to talk about the diet for arthritis here in a few minutes, but if you have osteoarthritis, and I've got it in my right knee, that's the wear and tear arthritis. When you walk and you get pain in your knee or pain in your back or somewhere else, that generally is arthritic. Generally, that's got to do with age or wear and tear, and we'll talk about rheumatoid arthritis in a minute. So the answer to that question is no, it's not a sign of getting older, but each of those things is worse as you get older. Vascular disease, overuse is easier to do because you're older, and you wouldn't have osteoarthritis if you were 22 years old and hadn't had a car wreck.
Well, let's move along to the arthritis. Can what I eat make a difference with my arthritis?
All right. There's two types of arthritis. The wear and tear arthritis, osteoarthritis. Every single solitary person in the world who lives beyond the age of maybe 30 will have some degree of osteoarthritis. If you saw the special on the glacier man from 5,000 years ago that they found well preserved in the glacier, and they x-rayed him, he had arthritis in his hips and his back. And you take the mummies they get out of the Egyptian pyramids, and they CT scan them, they've all got arthritis, and they can say this was probably a laborer because of the type of arthritis that he's got, and the joints that are most damaged. So every single solitary one of us is going to get osteoarthritis, and what you eat can make you have worse osteoarthritis if you're overweight. So my analogy is, if you are overweight, just imagine that at age 30 you weighed 150 pounds. That's when you're grown, when you're well muscled, and when you're healthy. And then at age 50 you weigh 200 pounds. So you are 50 pounds above your lean and ideal body weight. Just imagine that every day you stand, how old are you? 27, okay. So you imagine that when you're 40, you are 30 pounds heavier, and every day when you wake up at 27, you just put on a backpack with 30 pounds of books in it. You're going to get arthritis in your hips, your knees, your ankles, and your feet because of the weight, and your back because of carrying it. So yes, if you eat enough to be overweight, it causes osteoarthritis. That's not the diet and arthritis answer, however.
Are there any kind of foods that are a benefit per se, like for joints and inflammation and arthritis? What foods?
Now we're going to get into Judge Janine. We were just watching Judge Janine, and you Googled her and you said she's 65 years old.
And then what did you say?
I said, if you look at her hands.
That's not what you said.
I said, well, she looks real good for 65.
There you go. I just wanted you to say
but
that.
If you look at her hands, you can tell that she has rheumatoid arthritis by looking at the metacarpal phalangeal joint, or that joint, this joint, and her fingers do a little bit of this. She probably has rheumatoid arthritis, and her knees are a little knobby. They're great knees, though. Rheumatoid arthritis is the one that's inflammatory in a form of autoimmunity. And when I was doing my prep for this, and I believe it or not, I do a lot of prep for this, there is a large nutritional organization in Great Britain focuses all of its attention on the dietary treatment of rheumatoid arthritis. The British are not real big on drugs, as you well know. They got universal health care, and they don't want to write prescriptions for Celebrex because it's expensive. So we have said in here before, the omega-3 fatty acid supplements diminishes inflammatory things that may go on in the blood vessels of the heart, and at least it certainly doesn't hurt the heart, but it might diminish somewhat the development of atherosclerosis. Well, every time you start talking about inflammatory reactions, you go over to the rheumatoid arthritis, they say oily fish, remember the fish oil talk? Decrease in saturated fat, increase in unsaturated fat. Well, think about the cartilage. The cartilage really is, so remember chondroitin we talked about once before? The cartilage and the fluid within the joint sort of greasy and fatty, and so a decreased saturated fat, increase in omega-3 fatty acids in your diet, which comes from cold fish, that's the salmon and the tuna and the swordfish. The fish oil supplementation, which as we said here a few weeks ago, is one of the supplements that the establishment, I love that establishment stuff people say, the AMA. The AMA got nothing to do with establishment, but the scientific community, the peer-reviewed journals would say makes some sense. Lastly, calcium is part of the health of bone, so particularly females with calcium. Iron so that you're not anemic, B complex vitamins and vitamin B6. Well, all those things can come from foods or can come from supplements. So that's the Great Britain dietary recommendations for rheumatoid arthritis. Decreased saturated fats, more fish, fish oil, more calcium, foods that have enough iron in them, and then B complex vitamins.
You know, my uncle, and you may remember this, you may be young enough to remember this. Jack LaLanne, remember Jack LaLanne? All right.
Your uncle?
No, no, okay. My uncle.
All right.
No, not Jack LaLanne, but my uncle, probably about 88, still looks like Jack LaLanne. I mean, he just, you remember how Jack LaLanne was? Yeah. He's the first TV exercise guy.
Yes, oh yeah.
So no, that's not my uncle, but he looks like him, and that's what I'm saying. I respect a lot of what he says because he's 88, and he's a real. He's really into his nutrition, and he takes every morning 2 tablespoons of just pure cherry that he gets from Canada, shipped down in bottles. I mean, it's just pure cherry, and he says that works for.
Well, first of all,
it's good for. I always want to be careful when I say something works for, but
yeah. But first of all, let's go back and talk about him. He exercises a whole lot.
Yes.
He doesn't claim that his physique comes from the cherry.
No.
Okay, I understand.
No.
I just want to get it straight.
Right.
Now, every single thing we've talked about here, exercise helps prevent cancer. Exercise helps prevent Alzheimer's disease. Exercise helps recovery from stroke. Exercise, every single solitary thing that is degenerative and has to do with aging is improved by exercise, including arthritis, including mental functioning, and the black cherry that it grows in Canada. I love them. That's kind of like what we talk about the pomegranate and all the other things. And it's got antioxidants in it. And I don't know if they've got a real high potency one. That might be, 20 cherries worth of stuff in 2 tablespoonfuls.
Right.
And I'll be, if you give me a website, I might buy some for myself.
Oh, he does he does. It's a pure black cherry from Canada.
And it comes from Ontario somewhere, because that's where they grow all the cherries. Have you ever been in Canada during cherry season? Well, that I got to tell you, that's you lie down the side of the road, and like we sell peanuts, or the apples or something. You can buy a big old half bushel of cherries for $2 or something, and I mean that's just heaven on earth. And the fresh baked bread that the Mennonites have cooked on the side of the road.
Many things you ask me, I have to say no, but actually this one here, I have been in Canada in cherry season.
Yeah, but right there where they're selling the cherries, they're selling fresh baked warm bread that you can buy cheap. The Mennonites are making it. Now, we're a travel show this morning, but that's I recommend it for you.
Dr. Whaley, I appreciate you. And again, I want to say I was looking forward to this segment this morning, especially. I look forward to it every week, but I know that you do understand as a veteran. I always want to say we appreciate you very much. And I want to thank you for, as a veteran, saying a word of appreciation for those young men and women yesterday that carried that out and knowing they're out there.
Well, next we were going to talk about the big preventable cancer today, because I saw 2 patients this
What do you got?
Well, if we got time, I will.
Okay, no.
All right, I saw 2 patients this week who have cancer that should be eliminated from the future. One was a head and neck cancer, one was a cervical cancer. Both of them are caused by the HPV virus, which we talked about way back in the spring last year when there was a lot of talk about getting ready for school and taking their immunizations. There is an immunization today that is recommended for 11 and 12-year-old boys and girls, the human papillomavirus vaccination, that if they took it would eliminate about 70 to 90% of cervical cancer. Almost 100% of head and neck cancer we see today is due to the HPV virus. I was shocked to find out that 4 out of 10 adults under the age of 60 in this country have infection with the HPV virus. Now that's a huge number, and 25% of those are the strain that causes cancer. That vaccination would eliminate that. And the natural history is that people, once they become sexually active, and I'm not going to get into when that happens or what it is, but by the behavior that goes on in Western Europe and in the United States today, not talking about Arab countries or Asia or anywhere else, but in our culture, probably 80 to 90% of people in their lifetime will become infected with the HPV virus. Most of them will fight it off with their natural antibodies, but a sizable number, and I just said it's 40% of people under the age of 60 will have a persistent infection with the virus. And if you can eliminate that by taking the shot, you will have eliminated most cases of cervical cancer and most cases of head and neck cancer in the future. People resist their 11 and 12-year-old kids getting the shot because they think it's sort of a ticket that says, go be sexually active. It's a shame that that label got placed on that vaccination. But my encouragement is that in this community, I've learned that a minority of that age adolescents are receiving the vaccine. And talking to Ray Tidman about preventable diseases and stuff, and your private practitioner like Ray Tidman and those people can get that shot for you. And I'm just trying to encourage the parents to say, let's give my son and my daughter the greatest chance they can have of being cancer-free as adults, and that says go get the shot. There.
Dr. Whaley, I appreciate it. I'm glad we did take time for that great piece of information. Throughout the week, if you'd like to send a message to Dr. Whaley concerning a question, 706-889-9700 or chief@fetyournews.com. We're going to take a brief break. When we come back, we're going to talk about a fundraiser that, do you like jazz?
Love it.
You like jazz?
Yeah, I keep telling you, Preservation Hall, New Orleans, man. I took Jane down there before whatever her name was that had the stroke died. So my wife went down there. What was that lady's name?
I don't remember.
Oh, Jane will remember when she's here today. But she's on the cover of all their records. So yeah, I'm a big jazz fan.
Folks, we'll be back right after these messages. Again, thank you, Dr. Whaley. And don't forget, 9 o'clock, just a little after 9, our all-star political panel. Take us to break.